trauma, or community responsibilities that impact academics. This goes directly against the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action 62 and 63, which ask governments to support Indigenous education, fund Indigenous-led learning, and promote empathy and intercultural understanding. Instead of following those calls, Bill 33 does the exact opposite. It takes away Indigenous control and limits our ability to share our culture and knowledge. Indigenous students know what works for us: community, culture, and self-determination. Bill 33 takes power and funding away from students and gives it to the government. If the province truly wants to support students, they should invest in us and not control us. I say no to Bill 33.
Very well spoken, thank you. I'm Shallon, I'm the Vice President for ISAY. And let me tell you, this bill that is being introduced is framed as an efficiency measure, when in actuality it affects jobs, students, and marginalized communities the most. This will obviously lead to a lesser educated public, which the government wants you to not be educated. They want you to not make informed decisions. This campaign that is to protect Ontario and to protect Ontario families and workers absolutely goes against that. This impacts not just our downtown, but also the most rural communities in Northwestern Ontario, which are also forgotten, which is convenient for the government. When it comes to cuts, school closures and lack of job opportunity are often what happens the most often. Less staff means less programs and cutting hiring opportunities, which again goes against their Let's Protect Ontario campaign. There's economic consequences to this. Every dollar in the long run costs Ontario's Truth and Reconciliation Act even more in the long run. Reducing diversity in education undermines reconciliation efforts and commitments in education. This continues a vicious cycle of poverty. What does that mean? Poverty equals, well, unemployment. Equity officers and offices at York are already severely underfunded in Ontario, and especially at York University. We do not have hardly a recruiter for Indigenous students on campus, little alone a budget for the rest of our, KISS or our center on campus. Our government wants to solve the Indigenous reconciliation issue. By cutting education today, that costs reconciliation tomorrow, the next day, and for years after. Today, we want to solve the poverty, so why not continue to have the budgets within that? We must advocate together to ensure every student in Ontario, from downtown to Toronto to all the way in Northwestern Ontario, has the access to safe and high quality education. Miye Miigwech.
Thank you so much, ISAY. That was very powerful. I really, really appreciate that. I wanted to introduce next, our next speaker is Zoe from QP 3903, who is the chair of QP 3903, which represents TAs and contract staff at York University.
Hey everybody, so lovely to see all your faces and to be here today, even though obviously what we're here to talk about is crappy and we don't want to be out again having to fight for bills that actually make our lives worse. But here we are. I'm here to say that QP 3903 members, teaching assistants, contract faculty, and many other workers here at York are in solidarity with undergrad students. We know that an attack on one is an attack on all, that attempts to limit the political expression and organizing of undergrads are directed at weakening wider social activism, right? We know what this is really about. At 3903, we know that informed, mobilized undergrad students are crucial to free speech and having space for political dissent. It's crucial to holding admin accountable for things like weapons and fossil fuels investments that have devastating human and planetary effects. And having mobilized undergrad students is crucial to bargaining and winning workers' rights. Section 21(1) of Bill 33 states that the, quote, Lieutenant Governor and Council may make regulations governing any fees that a College of Applied Arts and Technology or publicly assisted university charges to students or requires students to pay, end quote. What that means is that the provincial government would be able to put itself in charge of regulating the fees that fund crucial organizations and resources on our campuses, what you've already been hearing about. It puts the decision-making power about essential student services in the hands of politicians instead of where it should be, the hands of students. What we're seeing proposed in Bill 33 is a continuation of what we've already seen the York Upper Admin and Board of Governors doing over the last few years. I'm talking about the way they've been overreaching and trying to increase their powers. I'm talking about the way admin and the BOG have been surveilling and reprising students and campus organizations for taking principled positions during an act of genocide. And I'm talking about the upper admin and BOG trying to restructure, cut, and privatize all the resources we and generations before us have struggled for here at York. You know what I mean. I'm talking about the Board of Governors stepping in to de-levy SASL, which is the Sexual Assault Survivors Support Line and Leadership. I'm talking about the program suspensions that we've seen in Indigenous studies, gender and women's studies, and sexuality studies. I was asked to talk a bit about how the underfunding of education has affected 3903 members. Government underfunding of universities has many, many effects. I want to talk about how underfunding has contributed to a punitive culture and inequitable policies here at York. Recently, it's meant that universities in Ontario have built extractive, exploitative budgetary models based on international student tuition. So Ontario universities like York seem to be extremely reliant on international students, or at least their tuitions, and yet York admin don't seem able to contemplate the actual needs of the students, the international students themselves. For example, with the imposition of new practices de-enrolling PhD students if they don't meet milestones, international students are seeing their work contracts and their very status in Canada threatened. Bill 33 is not going to fix any of that, right? I'm going to tell you about a lot of problems that have been created here by the provincial government already, by York admin. Bill 33 makes all of these things worse. In the name of a budgetary and enrollment crisis, contract faculty who've been doing more than half of all the teaching at York and have been helping to sustain the university for decades are seeing their courses canceled. That's having a profound effect on contract faculty economically and mentally, to say nothing of meaning there are fewer courses for undergrads to choose from. This fall